another edition of the show. Welcome to Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Temple Ashaju. We've got Joshua Adebisi I beg your pardon, joining us now from Vertical Capital Management. Thank you. Ayodeji Ebo also joins us from Chapel Hill Denham Advisory Limited. Bosin Omofaye, our executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, is here to serve us some considerations, editorial considerations, which we always like. Let's begin with the market. Nigeria was down yesterday by 1.33%. BRVM Stock Exchange in Ivory Coast was positive by 75 basis points. The Egyptian stock market was also down 1.10%, while you have Nairobi Stock Exchange ticking higher by some 97 basis points, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in South Africa was positive by some 25 basis points midweek. Let's look at the East African headlines. We've got Central Bank of Kenya, E for Impact Foundation Inc., a memorandum of understanding for fintech company support. Kenya's first quarter avocado exports surged by 73%, worth some 4.6 billion shillings. Britam Holdings gross premium was positive by 4.06%. No dividend. KenGen is to receive some 23 billion shillings debt payment from Kenya Power, and Uganda's national debt surges by 35% to 65 trillion Ugandan currency there in 1 year. Ugandan shilling specifically. Bosun, let me bring these headlines to you for your analysis.
Well, I'm just going to say a few words about the avocado story, and that tells you that the appetite for these particular agricultural products, you know, I'm in love with anything that has to do with agriculture, agro-processing, agro-allied, agro-industrialization, and how we can improve our FX earnings on the African continent. This is avocado that you don't really need to do much of beneficiation or in terms of processing. You just make sure you harvest the crops very well, you make sure they are well preserved, and then you wash them, whatever you take, and you just export. And you just take them in via Kenya Airways, whatever cargo airline, and it lands in Europe, in America, anywhere in the world in a couple of hours. Well preserved, goes straight to the stores, and it's good business. So how much of this can we do across Africa and more in West Africa, in countries that are very rich agriculturally like Nigeria? That's a conversation we need to have very forward. But I say, congratulations, thumbs up for you Kenyans, doing 73% avocado exports to US and elsewhere. The problem between KenGen and Kenya Power, both of them are listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Both of them, government have interest in them. So I think they need to resolve this problem very quickly. It's beginning to sound a little bit like we have problem with Nigeria between the power distributors and the power generators, that the power distributors, the discos, are owing the power generating companies. So 23 billion shillings is a whole lot of money, if you ask me, even by exchange rates of the shilling to the dollar, and that has to be sorted out. Britam Holdings, the full numbers will be out today. That's what we're getting from Kenya. It's an insurance. They have a big insurance companies there. The numbers didn't really look too well for 2020, but we're going to see how things move on moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Bosun. Ayodeji, would you like to compare and contrast the KenGen situation with that of Nigeria and the debt being owed by governments to the discos and, of course, the generating companies?
Yeah, I think it would, though may not have in-depth knowledge about what led to that, but I feel that looking at what is also happening in Nigeria, it's when most countries or African countries, when they don't allow the companies to charge a rate that is reflective of what the cost should be, then typically it means that someone must be paying for whatever difference. So the accumulation of the debts that we're seeing can maybe traceable to some, I would say, some of the companies, maybe the rates, the tariff that is currently being charged may not be cost effective, and as a result, by the time we also look at that with the leakages in terms of customers that are not even paying at all, then you discover that it continues to accumulate, and you see the agreement, the purchasing power agreement that you always see. Most times it's always like a take or pay agreement that once they begin to generate, you have to pay for whatever is supplied, and most times leads to that gap, because if you are not able to recoup what you have collected, then there will be gap somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ayodeji. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the Western African and Nigerian headlines, where the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria okays Buhari's Poverty Reduction Growth Strategy Program. The Economic Advisory Council, ESA, proposes new Nigerian fund for social impact issues. Investors sell off FBN Holdings shares for which is 69.4 million naira in value, or million units rather, in total, midweek, on the change of the First Bank CEO. Of course, we know that First Bank is a subsidiary of the listed FBN Holdings. United Capital's first quarter revenue was up by more than 3 billion naira. Profit tops over 1.66 billion naira as well. In Togo, there's a 50 billion naira, 50 billion CFA 5-year recovery bonds at 5.8% coupon for the which is to be paid tomorrow, April the 30th. And in Burkina Faso, you have Societe Generale getting guarantees of 1 billion CFA franc for small and medium enterprises. Let me come to you, Joshua, for your thoughts on these headlines. You've got quite a number of them before you there, and I know that you probably will be very much interested in that of FBN, given the development that we are seeing at the corporate top executive level of that company that came up yesterday.
Yes, to be fairly honest, it's a little bit of a strange situation, because obviously the CBN have come out to say that they were not notified of the change before it was made. And this has pretty much eroded people's faith in the entity that is First Bank Limited. Now, on several levels, there are a few things to consider here. Was it a performance issue? We don't really, they didn't come out to say the specific reason for, making this very rapid change in management, especially due to the fact that the outgoing CEO his tenure had not expired. As we know, the CBN has put in place a 10-year period, or a 10-year tenure for each chief executive. So these things, not following the protocol, first of all, sends a bad message to investors and sends a bad message to the market. And we have already seen that with the reaction that has been had on First Bank. To be fair, First Bank shares have been in a bit of flux recently, but this has certainly exacerbated that issue. So overall, the resolution of it is, I don't know if it's going to even reinstill faith into the markets or into investors with regard to those shares, but definitely it has to be resolved quickly so that we can sort of move back to First Bank's recovery and attempt to turn around the bank specifically and turn around the whole holding company in general, just to get them back to where they were before, get them back to their former glory. Because in terms of assets, they still have, I think, the second largest group assets of any bank, but in terms of profitability, they're lagging behind all the other things. In fact, in the tier one space, I think they are probably at the bottom or close to the bottom with regards to that. So maybe that was the reason. Maybe it was the performance issue. But if that was the case, obviously they had to provide justification to the CBN, give them reason for making such a change, and doing it without their permission obviously just sends the wrong message.
Right, and thank you so much for that contribution, Joshua. Ayodeji, any contributions or any comments on this particular story? And if you like to have a go with any other story there.
Okay, thanks. I think it's a pity this is coming up, as First Bank is just trying to stabilize and trying to build investors' confidence. We've seen a lot of the back and forth in terms of when you check high non-performing loans that impacted on investor sentiment, and banks still trying to just recover. So with the first step for them not to have followed due process, it also speaks about the top management or the board of the bank if before sending this information out there in the public. And maybe if it's a leak, it's also something that they need to avoid this from happening again, because the FBN is a public company, and where we should first hear the news is from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because it can influence investment decisions. So it's critical that the first point of where the news should come up from should be the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and that's following the CBN approval. But also beyond even that, when you check what CBN have said, the response, also mandating them to sell off their non-permissible businesses, Honeywell, their stake in Honeywell Flour in Airtel. So there's a lot that these are brought to the fore. Also enforcing that Chief Otudeko also pay off the loan immediately within 24 or 48 hours. So we can see that it means there are a lot of things going on within the bank, and maybe that's part of what is affecting the efficiency of the bank, because this is based on what the response from CBN. You can see that they are trying to look into insider dealings in terms of the loan, related party loans. So beyond that, also looking at United Capital, we can see that they've sustained that positive momentum, and I believe that they would, even this year, there are still a lot of opportunities in terms of financial advisory opportunities, corporate insurances, which should also help improve their top line as well as their bottom line. So in terms of implications, so we would expect that on Honeywell Flour will see some new reaction, that there may be some initial sell-off, but when you look at the fundamentals of the company, we still believe there are still opportunities because of the industry where they operate. So what we may advise for very savvy investors, if you're a trader, it means you may want to short now and buy back when it's low. But if you're a long-term investor, you may want to just still hold on. Nothing much has changed in terms of fundamentals of the company. And we know Honeywell Flour is trying to raise, I think, bond or CP bond, so which is to expand their business. So I think by and large, our fingers are crossed and see how CBN would handle the issue of the First Bank.
Thank you for this beautiful insight, Ayodeji. Bosin, Penny, for your thoughts on this, and would you like to give us an insight into what the EAC proposes in terms of Nigeria Fund for Social Impact Issues?
Okay, I think the First Bank story issue needs to be handled very carefully by all the parties. That includes the central bank, by the way, and First Bank, because things are not really now. You don't want to have to rock the oldest commercial bank in Nigeria, and perhaps a whole lot of things begin to cascade out of that. What the regulator will need to do is jump and do it diligently as and when due. This has to be handled carefully. Remember, Bharti Airtel Africa shares is also listed on the exchange. Honeywell Flour is also listed. FBN Holdings is also listed. So we're talking about something development here that will crisscross about 3 listed companies. So we need to be extremely careful here, everyone. I think the SEC should also be consulted by the central bank into this as well, so as to have a coordinated approach that will not rock the market and rock everything down. So we need to be very careful. And I think that's all I'm going to say right now about that. Whatever regulatory action, we need to look at the wider implications very quickly. When you'll be talking about 3 companies on the stock exchange and all of that. That's what I think my comment will be. Just everyone has to tread very carefully on this and do things as per the rule of law or guidelines or rules of engagement. But then we need to be careful how the news go out and things of that nature, because before it becomes a social media, whatever issue. On the side of what the Nigerian government is proposing for the new poverty strategy program and the new LEAG fund, which is the Nigerian growth fund that was proposed. Well, two of them were proposed by the Economic Council, which was the Presidential Economic Advisory Council and all of that. It looks good on paper. The LEAG fund will operate more like a private equity fund that will invest in government projects and whatever this and that. Is it looking a little bit like the old Transcorp? I don't know, which was also set up then to be whatever it was. Is this a very nice idea, as it were? We learned yesterday this is different from the Nigeria Growth Fund that is managed by the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. So it's a new idea. We'll see how they will be able to source funds, move on. We also already had Infraco. Don't forget, the Infraco for infrastructure is also there as a private sector on one side. We have another program now to target poverty, social impact, and what have you. Now, are we having multi-layered and different type of programs? How do we fund them, and where is the overlap here between this new program and the economic sustainability program, which was rolled out last year at the outset of the pandemic? What would all of this mean moving forward? We wait to see. Let's get more analysts to talk to us on how this will be different and how will it work. Is it an arm of the ESP, or is it going to be a standalone program? What will be the characteristics of it? What are the deliverables? How will the funding come in, and all of that? All that has to be explained.
Right. Thank you so much, Bosin. Let's move on to the Southern African headlines, where Ramaphosa at Zuma graft trial says ANC could have done more. Pepco profit rises, cuts debts, sees 20% rise in first half year earnings. Life healthcare revenues between 0.9% and 6.1% in the first half of this year, January 2021. You have ZSE listed Rainbow Tourism Group revenue slumping by more than 66%. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange Fidelity listed assurance results further delayed for 2 months. Bosin, let's bring this to you.
Very quickly, the story around the Rainbow Tourism Company listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, tourism down to about 60% or so. Well, we all know it's no brainer that nobody went anywhere last year except to the barber shop and all that. Even some barber shops were closed in certain parts of the world. So, tourism in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, one of the good destinations on the continent, the safari and all of that were shut for most of last year. Those are just the consequences of the virus, by the way. For President Ramaphosa appearing at the Zuma's corruption trial is quite significant. And I think he spoke from a political point of view. The ANC, which is his own political party, he said it could have done more to prevent the corrupt, some of the cases that are being discovered under Zuma's administration. So he made a nice political statement. Everyone will take that on board. What that will mean in terms of moving forward for Jacob Zuma, the former president, who is at the middle and the center of the whole corruption trial, will remain anyone's guess. But now the current incumbent president, who is now the current head of the party, has testified, and then they can take it up from there. The rest are basically economic corporate news coming through from last year and this quarter.
Joshua, can I get your thoughts on something around the tourism sector globally? How much of optimism do you have on that sector? Egypt is expecting some 1 million visitors from Russia sometimes this year. We have seen the earnings of a lot of companies that depend on tourism or that are tourism based, like these, all slumping. Have you done any analysis on that sector at all?
Well, the analysis that I've done is purely on a personal level, but if you look at it globally or specifically in Africa, you see that our tourism faith is really tied to our ability to vaccinate and get everyone to a safe level of vaccination, because obviously safety is number one priority. We've seen what's going on in India at the moment is having a very tough impact on the perception of developing countries, especially countries with very low rates of vaccination. Now, if you want to talk about what our expectations are maybe for the rest of this year with regards to tourism, I think any country that is able to open up and significantly by the end of the year would see a bit of a better impact. Unfortunately, at this point, I think it's quite fair to say that the level of tourism that we're going to see in Africa specifically is not going to be anything to write home about, simply due to the fact that in order for there to be a recovery from almost a year and a half, or well, more just a year of lockdowns, limited movement, limited activity, I doubt that we're going to get up to a level of safety that we can start to see tourism at any meaningful level. Because it's one thing to have flights coming into your country at any kind of pace, but if we're not returning back to pre-COVID levels, to 2019 levels of movement, then it will be very difficult for me to say that tourism companies or tourism industries will be able to recover this year at any significant level. So there will definitely be need for support and need for sort of propping them up until we get to that level of safety. And I really stress on that whole point of safety, due to the fact that in order for tourism to succeed, there has to be free movement. And free movement is not possible unless maybe there's the institution of global COVID-19 passports with regards to vaccination. When you have been vaccinated with any of the many vaccines that there are right now, you can probably experience hassle-free movement. That is what will bring people, entice people back to all these countries and bring them back to any of the tourism centers. Unfortunately, we're not really there yet, but hopefully sometime this year that will happen. But I don't think that the tourism industry will fully recover in 2021.
All right, and thank you so much. I know you're optimistic though, but thank you so much for this analysis. Bosun, you'll be the one to give us the final thoughts on the Northern African headlines, and let me quickly present them. Egypt's FRA, that's the Financial Regulatory Authority, exempts Taya Misera Fund from all taxes. Delta Sugar posts some 76.77 million Egyptian pounds in the first quarter of this year. That's its profit. Maxim Development gets 450 million Egyptian pounds from the National Bank of Egypt, and you have this corporate developments, some sort of a change of leadership at the helm of affairs at Amen Bank. You have new executives joining management board, 2,150 dinars dividends to be paid. Hassan Dogiri is board chair, and Mohamed Kuba as new chief executive officer at Tunisia's UBC IBORS. That's a major stock exchange there, Bosun.
Yes, I found that, but this story about the UBC IBORS very interesting, to the extent that it's not a stock exchange like that, but an intermediary. And I found that very interesting. I went online and began to look up the structure of this company or financial service provider. It's not really an exchange per se, but they provide financial services, kind of a vehicle for companies going to the exchange. They call it an exchange intermediation company. So quite very unique institution, but I think it's something that is worth looking into. What key role can we have institutions such as that play in other markets such as Nigeria and elsewhere? Then when you have the Amen Bank also changing the top leadership, it means that at any point in time, change is constant in every environment, so you can't run away from it. What was the rationale behind the financial regulatory authorities in Egypt to give Taya Misera Fund exemption from all taxes? I'm sure that particular fund is not the regular fund. I'm sure that they have a whole lot tied to government activities and what have you. So if you exempt it from all the taxes or that needs to be paid, you can have a whole lot of things moving forward. But quite a lot of corporate news coming through from North Africa that are worth looking into by our analysts and our viewers who watch the show on a daily basis. Thank you, Temple. Thank you so much, Bosun Omofoye, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. I appreciate those insights. Ayode J. Thanks a great deal for your perspectives shared on the show today. He joined us from Chapel Hill, Denham. And of course, Joshua Odebisi, analyst with Vetiver Capital Management. Thanks a great deal, gentlemen, for your perspectives shared on Frontier Pink Bell this morning. I'm Temple Ashaju. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.